is Michelle Contreras, and today I will be covering Chapter 22, Atlantic Revolutions in the World 1750 to 1830. I'll mainly be focusing on the revolutions continued in the Western Hemisphere. Let's begin. As you know, or now you do, the biggest impact on revolution started during the French and American Revolution in the late 18th century. These revolutions spread quickly into the Western Hemisphere, into the island of Hispaniola, which motivated slave revolts and it brought fear amongst whites. Not only did slaves revolt during the revolutions, but also the middle and upper class who wanted to gain independence from Spain and Portugal. The Haitian Revolution took place in 1791 to 1804. French Revolution spread to the Caribbean island of Hispaniola. Hispaniola was a wealthy sugar colony run by the whites and the free blacks. Hispaniola was divided into two: West Hispaniola, which was known as Saint Domingue, and East Hispaniola, which is Santo Domingo, which is now modern-day Dominican Republic. Caribbean slaves had to be living during the most inhumane conditions. Some committed suicide. Women used plant medicines to induce abortions and prevent bearing children who will live in misery. Solidarity and suffering were one of the reasons why it made the Caribbean ripe for revolution. It pushed the slaves to want their independence from their mistreatments. Some of these ideas that they wanted were freedom and human rights, not only for African and North American slaves, but also for the free blacks. In 1791, there was a slave uprising in Saint Domingue, spread by the rumors that French revolutionaries had already freed them. Then came in Pierre-Dominique Toussaint Louverture, a free black man, the leader of the Haitian Revolution. In 1794, the French revolutionary government declared the blacks with equal rights. Later on, civil war broke out when black plantation owners did not want to cooperate politically or economically with ex-slaves. The ex-slaves had to return to plantations even though they were already free. But Toussaint told them that they would receive a quarter of the profit from the sugar plantations. Plantation owners would receive another fourth, and the government would receive half. When Napoleon had come to power in France, everything changed, and he demanded more profit for the government. This led to the capture of Toussaint, who dies in jail in 1803. After his death, this made all the blacks unite against any French takeover in Haiti. Later on, on January 1st, 1804, the blacks proclaimed independence for Haiti. Revolutions in Latin America from 1810 to 1830. When Napoleon invaded Spain and Portugal in 1807, he sent the ruling dynasties packing to give his own family control. The Portuguese monarch fled to Brazil in hopes of ruling the empire from the colony. While in Spain, the monarch was replaced by Napoleon's brother, Joseph. Guerrilla warfare erupted against the French, while Spanish activists organized juntas, or ruling councils, around the country, despite of the French rule. And if by now you still don't know what to think about Napoleon, just know that he's not in the wars against Napoleon. People in the Spanish colonies had new contacts and new opportunities. Spain tried to control trade by requiring goods to be carried on Spanish vessels. Wars opened ports to Britain vessels carrying new goods and ideas, and global news spread at regional crossroads, parish priests, market people, and mule. Yet throughout all this chaos caused by Napoleon, aspiring leaders saw a situation full of potential.
Due to the
struggles for independence will last until 18. The two maps shown on the screen, on your left is Latin America in the 1800s, and on your right is Latin America in the 1830s. You can tell the difference between the colored scheme. The red on your left represents the British colonies, the purple represents the Dutch colonies, the orange represents the French colonies, the yellow represents Portuguese colonies, which you can tell is Brazil, modern-day Brazil, and the green represents the Spanish colonies, including Mexico, Haiti, Peru, Buenos Aires, which is Argentina, and many others. The one on your right, Latin America in the 1830s, is mostly purple, which is the independent countries that now have gained their independence, such as Mexico, Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Haiti, Honduras, and many more. Left is Latin America in the Reformers and rebels sprang into action throughout Latin America. In Mexico, Father Miguel Hidalgo, a Mexican priest trained in Enlightenment thought by the Jesuits and exiled by the Spanish to a rural parish because of his ideas, opened a campaign against colonial rule in 1810. His soldiers were his own parishioners, most of them being Native American day laborers for the Spanish and Creoles. The collapse of silver mining and the soaring prices of food made them desperate. Hidalgo's army swelled to some 60,000 fighters who hoped to get paid or fed as they fought. The average fighter of the Mexican viceroy, however, was a robber, assassin, and libertine. Hidalgo's followers, motivated in fact by outrage at the poverty and oppression, slaughtered Spaniards, Creoles, and anyone else who stood in their path. In 1811, Father Hidalgo was captured and executed, but other armies appeared under the leadership of mulattoes, mestizos, which were mixed-blood people of Native American and European ancestry, and well-born Creoles, who wanted the Spanish out and opportunity reborn. But by 1815, the Spanish had put an end to this first stage of the Mexican drive for independence and had executed its leaders, which added to the hatred of colonialism that many felt. Who is Agustín de Iturbide? He became the leader of the conservative factions in the Mexican independence movement and as the Emperor of Mexico. Like many young men of the upper classes in Spanish America, Iturbide entered the Royalist army, becoming an officer in the provincial regiment of his native city in 1787. In 1810, Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla offered him a post with his revolutionary army, but Iturbide refused and pledged himself to the Spanish cause instead. So he basically went against his own country. His defense of Valladolid against the revolutionary forces of José María Morelos dealt a crushing blow to the insurgents, and for this victory, Iturbide was given command of the military district of Guanajuato and Michoacán. In 1816, however, grave charges of extortion and violence caused his removal. By 1820, the radical independence movement was almost entirely extinguished. Both Hidalgo and Morelos had been captured and executed. Only guerrilla bands under the command of General Vicente Guerrero, who was on your right, prevented the complete victory of the Royalists. The Mexican independence movement then performed a curious about-face in reaction to a liberal coup d'etat in Spain. The conservatives in Mexico, formerly staunch Royalists, advocated immediate independence. Iturbide assumed command of the army in Aguila, allied his reactionary force with Guerrero's radical insurgents. Iturbide's Plan de Iguala, published on February 24, 1821, proclaimed three guarantees. 1. Immediate independence from Spain. 2. Equality for Spaniards and Creoles. And 3. The supremacy of Roman Catholicism, and a ban on all other religions. The revolutionary coalition quickly fell apart as Iturbide removed Guerrero and his insurgent following from influence. On May 1982, Iturbide placed the crown upon his own head and became Agustín I, Emperor of Mexico, an arbitrary and extravagant ruler. He proved unable to bring order and stability to his country, and all parties soon turned against him. Opposition solidified. Who is Agustín de Iturbide? He became the leader of the conservative factions in the Mexican independence movement and as the Emperor of Mexico. Like many young men of the upper classes in Spanish America, Iturbide entered the Royalist army, becoming an officer in the provincial regiment of his native city in 1787. In 1810, Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla offered him a post with his revolutionary army, but Iturbide refused and pledged himself to the Spanish cause instead. So he basically went against his own country. His defense of Valladolid boldly against the revolutionary forces of Jose Maria Morelos dealt a crushing blow to the insurgents, and for this victory, Iturbide was given command of the military district of Guanajuato and Michoacan. In 1816, however, grave charges of extortion and violence caused his removal. By 1820, the radical independence movement was almost entirely extinguished. Both Hidalgo and Morelos had been captured and executed. Only guerrilla bands under the command of General Vicente Guerrero, who was on your right, prevented the complete victory of the Royalists. The Mexican independence movement then performed a curious about-face in reaction to a liberal coup d'etat in Spain. The conservatives in Mexico, formerly staunch Royalists, advocated immediate independence. Iturbide assumed command of the army in Aguila, allied his reactionary force with Guerrero's radical insurgents. Iturbide's Plan de Iguala, published on February 24, 1821, proclaimed three guarantees: 1. Immediate independence from Spain; 2. Equality for Spaniards and Creoles; and 3. The supremacy of Roman Catholicism, and a ban on all other religions. The revolutionary coalition quickly fell apart as Iturbide removed Guerrero and his insurgent following from influence. On May 1982, Iturbide placed the crown upon his own head and became Agustin I, Emperor of Mexico, an arbitrary and extravagant ruler. He proved unable to bring order and stability to his country, and all parties soon turned against him. Who is Vicente Guerrero? Vicente Guerrero is on the picture on your right. Many people in the world don't even know his name, but yet Vicente Guerrero should be revered throughout history as a leader of liberty, independence, and peace. He was a general in Mexico's War of Independence. He helped write the nation's constitution, and he abolished slavery during his presidential administration. Yes, Vicente Guerrero was the first president of Mexico. Vicente Guerrero of Mexico was of mixed African descent, and the state of Guerrero, Mexico, is named in his honor. 1821, the 300th anniversary of the Spanish conquest of Mexico, Iturbide entered Mexico City as Spanish rule disintegrated. Still, the start of Father Hidalgo's uprising of the common people on September 16, 1810, not this event, came to mark Mexico's Day of Independence. Who was Simón Bolívar? Simón Bolívar was a South American soldier who was instrumental in the Continental Revolution against the Spanish Empire. Born into wealth, Bolívar was sent to Spain for his education, soon deciding to immerse himself in the political sphere in Europe. After France invaded Spain in 1808, he became involved in the resistance movement and played a key role in the Spanish-American fight for independence. In 1825, the Republic of Bolivia was created in honor of the inspirational leader. Bolívar had succeeded in uniting much of South America in a federation free from Spanish control, but the government was fragile. Despite his desire to create a union of states similar to that which created the United States of America, Bolívar faced opposition from internal factions throughout the huge Gran Colombia, with there being a push to form single nations. As a temporary measure, Bolívar declared himself a dictator in 1828, though in September of the same year, he escaped an assassination attempt with aid from his mistress and fellow revolutionary Manuela Sáenz. He resigned his post in 1830 and made plans to sail for exile in Europe. Speaking of Simón Bolívar and Gran Colombia became what he conquered in Latin America, and you can see it in the map on your right, which he worked with black troops to take Bogota, which is in Colombia, Caracas, which is in Venezuela, and Quito, which is in Ecuador, by 1822. Who was Bolívar? Who was José de San Martín? José de San Martín was an Argentinian soldier, statesman, and national hero. He helped lead the revolutions against Spanish rule in Argentina, Chile, and Peru. He helped lead the revolutions against Spanish rule in Argentina in 1812, Chile in 1818, and Peru in 1821. The The boldness of his plan to attack the viceroyalty of Lima by crossing executed it was likely the decisive factor in the defeat of Spanish power in South America. Both San Martin and Bolivar had the same point of view. They had originally seen no conflict between their own freedom and the existence of slavery, but as the need for slave support became obvious, Bolivar declared it a madness that a revolution for liberty should try to maintain slavery. Many liberation leaders had promised and awarded slave soldiers their emancipation either immediately as a way of attracting fighters or after the wars as a reward for victory.
Who was both San Martin and Bolivar?
Now let's talk about some new ideologies and revolutionary. Who was Pedro I? He was the founder of Brazilian Empire and the first emperor of Brazil. He was generally known as Dom Pedro, and he was the son of King John VI of Portugal. When Napoleon conquered Portugal in 1807, Pedro accompanied the royal family in his flight to Brazil. He remained there as a regent when King John returned to Portugal in 1821. Pedro surrounded himself with ministers who counseled independence. When the Portuguese Cortes Parliament, preferring colonial status for Brazil, demanded that Pedro return to Lisbon to complete his political education, he issued a declaration of Brazilian independence on September 7, 1822. Within 3 months, he was crowned emperor. So, if you're ever in Brazil and you hear someone speak Portuguese, then you just remind yourself of when Brazil became independent from Portugal. And you can't forget that Brazil is the last country to end slavery. Now let's talk about some new ideologies and revolutionary legacies that came from the Western revolutions. Although there was failure of the revolutions in the Americas and Europe to bring full and free citizenship to slaves, women, and a range of other oppressed peoples, they nonetheless inspired hopes for the economic opportunity and personal freedom that defined the term liberalism. Now what is nationalism? Nationalism is a belief in the importance of one's nation, stemming from its unique laws, language, traditions, and history. What did nationalism have to do with Latin America? Well, Latin American leaders such as Bolivar had much less faith in all the people of the nation being ready for participation in government. Complicating ideas of nationalism, opponents of the new governments of the United States and France believed that time-honored monarchical traditions were a better guarantee of a peaceful society than constitutions and republics.
What is
Nationalism is a belief in the importance of one, which led to the idea of conservatism. Conservatism is a political philosophy emphasizing the continuation of traditional institutions in opposition to sudden change in the established order. Many conservatives argued the case for tradition, continuity, and gradual reform based on practical experience. Among one of these conservatives was Edmund Burke of England, attacked the Enlightenment ideas of a social contract, citizenship, and newfangled constitutions as destructive to the wisdom of ages. Romanticism. Romanticism is a European philosophical and artistic movement of the late 18th and early 19th centuries that valued feeling over reason and glorified traditional customs, nature, and imagination. Since Romanticism started during the French Revolution, a perfect example would be the picture on your right, which is Liberty Leading the People, and it's a painting by Eugene Delacroix commemorating the July Revolution of 1830, which toppled King Charles X of France. Romanticism was closely related to early nationalism, which was also a response to the political turmoil of the Napoleonic Wars. It arose a romantic nationalism, especially in territories such as the German states, and Romantic nationalists revered language and traditions as sources of a common feeling amongst people. To make the revolutionary legacy more complicated yet, Napoleon Bonaparte and Simón Bolívar ultimately became romantic heroes to rich and poor alike, even though they represented Enlightenment ideals of social mobility and economic modernization. Poets, musicians, and artists influenced by Romanticism earned their livelihoods not only by glorifying feelings instead of reason, but by spreading the myths of Napoleon and Simón Bolívar as superhuman rulers who overcame horrific obstacles to become conquerors. These powerful, if conflicting ideas, like liberalism, nationalism, conservatism, and romanticism, resonated down through the next centuries. It shaped both local and global politics, which you probably have heard of today.
Romanticism. Thank you guys so much for enjoying this slide, and I hope you got to learn a little bit more of the revolutions in the Western Hemisphere. Bye.